Welcome to my Hebrew channel, Miel Hebraica, Hebrew honey, and we're going to spend some time looking at female grammar forms as we first see them in Ruth, first chapter, verse 3 onwards. And first two verses of just male uh, forms of the verbs and the things. And then, but this is one of the reasons why we're studying Ruth is that it has a really good balance of male and female forms of pronouns, verbs, nouns, and so forth. So in Hebrew, you have gender, you have male or female, and the verbs often reflect that as well. That's one of the reasons we use the book. It's got lots of feminine forms, of course, with Naomi, and then the daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, and so forth. Then later on, of course, it balances out between male and female once Boaz enters the story. And all references, of course, to Jehovah will be masculine. So the female forms in the Bible are found in places where we're talking about Tamar, we're talking about Hannah or Hannah, talking about Sarah, and also like other books like Proverbs, because Chokmah, that is wisdom, has a female gender, so it's Chokmah, wisdom. Other places, the virtuous woman, Proverbs 31, of course, many female forms in there. And then the book of Esther, of course, has lots of female forms. So it's so to get a variation of masculine and feminine and how it goes back and forth on the gender, this is a good book for it. Most everything else, the narration, it generally flows right through with the masculine gender of all. Well, if you're talking about all the men that did things in the Old Testament, yeah, those are all in the masculine gender. So there's a lot of masculine forms in the Bible. There aren't comparison. I don't know what the proportion is. Maybe a quarter or so of the forms would be feminine. So that's just a guess. Anyway, on to the female grammar forms in verbs and in pronouns. This is the last part of verse 2, and this is getting on to verse 3, again using the codex. And Vayamot Elimelech ish Naomi v'teshaer hi v'ushene banacha baneha. This is Shidei Moab ve'Husham, and this was in the fields of Moab, and they were there. They stayed there for that time. Interesting thing when you see the division between verse 2 and verse 3. Our scribe doesn't bother with sof pasuk. We have a sof pasuk here, of course, in the version, the electronic version we're using here, but the scribe didn't bother with it. He made the suluk do all the work, right? This is a suluk, so so it actually makes it one of the stronger. In other words, this suluk had to usually it's a double task, suluk, sof pasuk, shuluk, sof pasuk. So when you're reading printed versions, that's what you're looking for to see a verse end. But when you're reading a handwritten version, quite often the sof pasuk doesn't show up. It does show up at the end here. Here's got a nice sof pasuk over here, and you have the suluk is over here. This is the verse or the syllable that comes just before the end of the verse. So shiluk, sof pasuk right there. We're used to seeing big sof pasuk, but quite often in handwritten documents, the sof pasuk is just a wee little thing like this. It's tell you what, when you start reading handwritten documents, things that you expect to be big are small, and vice versa. So here it is, sof pasuk. That's the last closing of the verse. So translation is, but Elimelech, Elimelech, ish Naomi, husband of Naomi, died. Okay, that's Yamot. I'm going to talk about that word a little bit because it is a kametz hatuv. What's a kametz hatuv? I'll get to explain that in a little bit. And one of the reasons I'll be explaining it because often electronic versions of the Bible don't cover this very well. They just see the comments. So they see this comment, they go, oh, comments is straight A. No, there are times when a comments has to be pronounced as an O. Okay, this is one of them right here. So we'll get to explain that one, that little detail. So Elimelech, Ish, husband or man of Naomi, dies. And this then, like I said, masculine and feminine forms. The masculine, the gender of this particular verb is defined by the yod right here. The prefix yod, the root is mem-tau, and the yod tells us right here that's the masculine form. Compare that to how this verb starts here, teshaer, that's a tau, and that tau then tells us that this particular verb here is feminine. And this counterpoint of yod and tau in third persons is quite often when the gender switches within a verse or from verse to verse. That's how it's gonna go. Just watch for the yod for masculine, the tau for the feminine. Just back and forth. Keep it simple here. It's used for other persons, but here we're talking about third persons. We're talking about third person. First person is I or we. Second person is you, be it plural or singular. And the third person is he or she, or he or she. So, and this then is the third person. Okay, yamot, yamot, and then teshayed. Okay, so was left over. He, her. Okay, so this is very interesting. Got he, got hey, hirik yod, aleph. So it's just, don't bother pronouncing the aleph here. Just really, at this point, all you were pronouncing is the hirik yod, is the I, the E, I. So he, that's her or she. Okay, she. And veshene baneha, and the two sons of her. Okay, two sons of her. This is then, this he is a pronoun, suffix pronoun in feminine. Okay, so what we have is he, incidentally, is an independent pronoun, and this is the feminine form of it. The masculine form of it is Hugh. And when you have Hugh, you have a Hey, Vav, Aleph. Okay. Incidentally, Hey, Vav, Aleph in the first 5 books of the Bible with a Hidik is feminine, but when you have a Hugh with a Vav in the middle, running as a surik, then that is masculine. Okay, so in Hebrew you hear Hugh for he and he for she. Okay? Now, hopefully I'm not confusing things, but one thing that you kind of have to remember, the Jewish comedians, when they start making movies and stuff, they played a lot of games with this. Who, he, who's on first, who's on second, who's on third. It all derives from what happens in Hebrew with definition of pronouns. That's where it comes from. That's where it's an inside joke for Jewish people as to, oh, he is actually she. Okay, Hugh is actually he. Okay, so it goes back and forth. Anyway, hopefully, in other words, it can be a very confusing scenario, but just keep your eye on who's doing what, or she's doing what, or he's doing what. Okay, so here we go. And I really, my intentions weren't to make jokes here, but it can be very confusing. And also, if you play it right, it can be very hilarious. But anyway, here goes. Teshayir, he, Vishne Baneha. Okay, and then the two of her sons. Okay, so Vayamot. This is a kames hatuv. Okay, kames hatuv. Kames hatuv. When you have a closed syllable, here's the definition of kames hatuv. Closed syllable that's not accented. Okay, closed syllable, no accent. The accenting here is va, ya. The accent is this line right here. So the first syllable would be va, and then ya would be the second syllable, and that one's accented. The last syllable here is not accented. So it's a closed syllable with no accent. There we have it. That's the environment for setting up a kametz hatuv. When you have a kametz hatuv, it's still a kametz. You still call it a kametz, but you call it kametz hatuv. And the reason you call it kametz hatuv is that once it's a kametz hatuv, you're going to pronounce it O. Okay, the pronunciation goes from A to O. Okay, so that's by Ya'amot. Blue Letter Bible doesn't pick it up. I don't know when they're going to finally edit it enough to catch the kametz hatuv, but here we are explaining it. And the book has numerous occasions by Yakom or Takom, and so it works with mot, motamut, works with kom, works with certain and Orpah, by the way, also has a kametz hatuv. So Orpah, so that's a kametz hatuv, begins that one. So it's here and there we're going to see a kametz hatuv, and when we see it, it allows us to define the pronunciation of the word. Doesn't make a huge difference grammatically or what it means to have a kametz hatuv or normal kametz. It's just simply the pronunciation. That's all it is. It's not doesn't change things if you say Vayamat or Vayamot. It just sounds a little strange to hear it. But it should be pronounced Vayamot. Yeah? Vayamot. Accenting here, close syllable, no accenting on it. Kametz is going to be a kametz hatuv. Elimelech ish Naomi. Here we have a construct connection, in other words, between ish and Naomi. And what's kind of interesting about it is that the construct form quite often has a change out to a certain kind of or a different kind of vowel pointing. This one happens to be exactly the same as a normal vowel pointing. So, in other words, ish in its construct form and ish in its absolute form, same thing. Okay, so when you just look at it, you probably wouldn't see right away, ish Naomi, but you do see it in the translation, husband of Naomi. Okay, so this of right here, it expresses the construct relationship between ish and Naomi. Okay, husband of Naomi. Beteshayer. Now we have the yod here, starting the third person masculine prefix form of this verb, and we have the tau beginning the third person feminine prefix form of this particular verb, shayer, teshayer, and she was left over. She was the leftovers. She was here it is, left, and she was. This word, in many ways, just means she was abandoned. She was on her own. She was nowhere to go. She did have her 2 sons, but her husband had died, and that she was a widow. So, and a widow in a strange land means that she was in very dire and difficult straits, a very difficult place to be. So, Beteshayed, and she remained. He, that's she, okay, she, he, it's a hirik right here, good. He, Veshene, and the 2 of, this is a number, but the number is kind of working like a construct, okay? The 2 of her sons, okay? Her 2 sons, okay? Veshene, Baneha. Baneha, okay, we're gonna decipher this. Ben, just the bet nun, is a son, okay? And Baneha is this, so Bane, that's the construct form of the plural then. Bane, okay? Bet nun yod. When somebody asks you, what's that yod doing here? Oh, it's made the construct plural. What's the last hey? That's the feminine personal pronoun. It's suffixed on the end of the whole thing. We have it right here with a kametz, which is okay. This can also have a mapik in it, just to show that it's a pronoun. This is working as a pronoun right here. So sometimes it's simply used as a vowel sound to give you sound of the kametz, but here it is most certainly a pronoun attached to the end of this beneha, okay? Beneha, the sons of her sons, okay? Every time you see a pronoun, an attached pronoun or an independent pronoun, always look for the antecedent. And the antecedent of he is Naomi, the antecedent of her is also Naomi. So antecedents. I keep telling my students constantly look for it, and it seems to be one of those things that I can talk about this a whole lot, and it's a little bit hard for it to settle in as to, yeah, always look back for the antecedents. What's the antecedent of this pronoun? What's the antecedent of that pronoun? And then we make sense of what's happening within the verse. If you don't know who the antecedents are, you don't know who's done the action. Okay. And so they took Moabite wives. The name of the one was Orpah, the name of the other was Ruth, and they lived there for about 10 years. Okay. Yeshau, they lifted up. Nasa. This is a nasa verb. This whole series, a whole grouping of what we call nasa verbs. That means they pull things up, lift things up. Okay. NASA, like pushing up rockets. Okay. So NASA. So when you look it up in the roots, this will be nun shin aleph. Okay. To lift something up. Incidentally, if you're going through like the book of Exodus, and every time the camp is lifted up, that's how you lift up a camp. You go around pulling up all the tent pegs. Okay, so you're lifting it up. You're lifting up the tents. You're rolling them up, putting them on the camels, and so forth. So when you lift something up, you're in an important phase of your life. Okay, so this is what you have here. It isn't just simply they took her, they lifted up Moabite wives. They went through an important phase in their lives. They married these the Orpah and Ruth. Alon Kilion married these women, and it was an important phase in their life. Of course, very soon both of them pass away, so it didn't do them a whole lot of good. So Yeshua, then they lifted up. They took Lachem for them. Okay, for them Lachem. Nashim. Okay, Nashim is women. This is an irregular form, and the reason it's an irregular form is that the Nashim is a masculine, officially masculine ending, but it's on the end of a feminine noun. It's a plural of Isha. So plural of Isha is Nashim, and it's irregular. This is what happens. Officially, it would be Sha'ot, okay, something like that. Holam Tau ending. No, the ending is Nashim, okay, or the form of this verb here, women, wives. Nashim, Moabiyot. And here you do see a very, very normal feminine plural ending on the end of this one, okay? Moav, so you got Mem, Aleph Bet, okay? That would be Moav, okay? Moav. And then the Yod, and then the Holam right here, plural, and the Tau, feminine, okay? So you got a feminine plural ending on the end of Moabiyot, the end of Moab here. Moabiyot, Moabite women. Shem, name, we've seen that one. Hi-hat, the first one. The first one. Orpah. Remember, I was talking about Kamet Satuv. That's a closed syllable, no accent. So this is what you have here. Closed syllable, no accent. Guess what? The Kamets is not really an A and an A anymore. It's O, okay? Orpah. Now, in the Septuagint, they leave this dagesh out, so it's Orpah. This one's Orpah. It does have a dagesh, so it's going to be it's going to be plosive P, okay? Plosive P and Orpah. Now, this one does have an accent, so if you don't have an accent on here, and this Shava is only closing up the syllable, then this one will be a Kamet Satuv. This one is a Kamet, but it has an accent. Since it has an accent, it's going to be an A, Orpah. Beshem, and the name Hashinit of the second one, okay, the one who's, first and second. Oh no, here's second place. You're going to go, oh no, this is the, if you're getting left over, you're getting lacking in importance. This is the one that's at the bottom of the heap. This is the last one being chosen, okay? Hashinit, Ruth, okay, Reut. I'm going to talk a little bit about what these two names mean. Orpah means the one with the lots of hair, okay, the bad-haired girl, and it's kind of hair that's kind of blowing around. So So this is the Orpah is the one that's sort of, wow, you'd say, yeah, her hair is sticking out and is waving around and so forth. And so that's Orpah. And in a sense, what happens when push comes to shove at the end? Are you going to stay with Naomi? Are you going to come under the lordship of Jehovah? Orpah says, no, I'm out of here. You can see her kind of running off with her hair flying back behind her. It's sort of the visual of what happens with Orpah. Okay, Orpah is the bad hair day girl, the bad hair girl. Reut, and that is, if you take the word for Reu, that's the neighbor, and you would go Resh Ain Surik Tau, that would be the neighborly person. Okay, and so that's actually a construct form of the neighbor. So it's the root of this particular word is quite beautiful as well. The neighborly person, the friendly person, the one that likes people. Okay, so Reut. Okay, so that very much described her character. So terrific. So Hashinit Reut Ave Yishbu, and they lived there. Okay, this particular sequence of Shin Bet, this is a Shin and this is a Bet. That root pops up all over the place, and its most common form is Yod Shin Bet. That is, they live there. It can also be they returned there. Okay, with a surik in the middle of it, but this one is Yeshbu. Okay, and then they lived there. Now, we've been talking about the men. This one here, Yeshu. So the Yod means it's masculine. This is a plural, and this is a masculine. It's plural. If there would be a tau on the front of this, it would be feminine. But these are masculine verbs here. The reason they're masculine is they're still talking about Malon Kilion. They're still talking about the two men who are the two sons who are raising up, who are lifting up Moabite women. So Vaishbu, Sham, there. Okay, so a nice counterpoint here of Veshem Isham. Okay, Shem is name, Sham is there. Okay, if you want to be there, if you want to be recognized for the place, you have to have Shem. So you need Shem to be Sham. And so it's an interesting counterpoint here. Even the scribe would even sort of stretch out his line in such a way that these two were on top of each other. Here's Shem Hayad Orpah Shem Ha-Shinit Reut Veshbu Sham. Okay, Shem Sham again. Remember when we introduced all the other names, the Shem, and then Sham ended the verse 2, I guess it is. Yeah. So anyway, again, a nice counterpoint between Shem and Sham. One is with a aesthetic, the other one is with a comment. Okay? Comments is going to be a normal comments because it is accent. Kesher, that is for about. Okay, for about. Ke is a preposition. This is the preposition approximately or for, and then Esher is 10. Okay, Esher, and that's 10 right here, and then Shanim for about 10 years. Yamotu, okay, so Yamotu, we saw Yamot at the start of verse 3, and here we see Yamotu at the start of verse 3, 4, 5, and this one here is a plural, then with the surik ending that one, okay, Yamotu, Gam, and he died also, those two boys, that's why this one's in plural. So, beautiful passage here, and we're picking up on the masculine and feminine forms, both in nouns, verbs, pronouns, and so forth. And we're going to see a lot of the counterpoint, or a lot of things going on between the women and what happens in the country, and what happens with Boaz. And then again, when we get to Boaz again, we're going to see quite a balance of masculine and feminine forms for nouns and for pronouns. So one of the good reasons for taking a good study of the book of Ruth, and it makes it very interesting to just see how things jump back and forth between the genders and makes it an interesting read. Yeah, that's why we read the story, or one of the reasons to read the story is, to understand just how God works in this world. And it's one of the beautiful things to see. It's a story with a lot of beauty to it, and so we're going to be looking at some of that beauty. So may God bless and God strengthen you in this day, and until the next time.